Very hot and steamy temperatures are continuing across the United States as a major heat wave continues over the next few days, and that could spawn significant severe weather in the form of damaging winds, large to very large hail, tornadoes, and flash flooding rains that we're going to detail in today's weather forecast that we cover across southern Canada, the United States, and the tropics. Welcome back here to Weather on the Go. Happy Saturday, everybody. And if you are a fan of straightforward, accurate, reliable weather coverage daily on the channel, make sure to subscribe to my channel, like the video, give it a thumbs up, and also share it with a friend, family member, and on social media. It helps to get all this vital information passed along to more and more people. Turning now to the severe weather forecast in yellow from northern South Dakota into eastern North Dakota, stretching up into northwest Minnesota. That is where scattered severe thunderstorms will be possible. In the dark green surrounding that, back westward into Montana, southward there into western Nebraska, including the Nebraska Panhandle, northeastern Colorado, and then eastward over here into northern Minnesota. That is where we have isolated severe thunderstorms that will be possible in dark green. And then over here into Missouri, Illinois, northern Indiana, Ohio, southern lower Michigan, Pennsylvania, panhandle of West Virginia, northern Virginia, Maryland, and Delaware. That is where we have isolated severe weather possible as well. Tornado threat today is confined to areas further to the north across eastern North Dakota and northwestern Minnesota. 2% chance in green across a 25-mile radius of any given point in or around this area. Now, as we go into tomorrow on Sunday, July 27th, at least isolated severe thunderstorms will be possible across the upper Midwest. Could have a slight risk included somewhere across Minnesota, western Wisconsin, and northern Iowa, and later outlooks from the Storm Prediction Center. If that was to be the case, then scattered severe thunderstorms will be possible. And then over here into the mid-Atlantic, the Delmarva really looking at isolated strong to severe storms on Sunday. Tornado threat extends from eastern South Dakota through central Minnesota and into northern Wisconsin, including the Twin Cities and Duluth areas as we go into the day on Sunday. It's a 2% in green within a 25-mile radius of any given point in or around this area. Let's start in the central U.S. We'll go to the eastern U.S., then we'll go to the western U.S. next and talk about the next 48 hours of what you could expect out there, out your door. At noon, we are seeing some showers, storms across northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin, stretching into southwestern lower Michigan. Some heavier rain will be possible with that activity over the next few hours. As we go into the mid-afternoon, we're going to see more intense storms develop from around St. Louis all the way up into the southern suburbs of Chicago, into the Fort Wayne, Gary, and South Bend, Indiana areas, and Grand Rapids. And some of those storms could pack a punch with some 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts and some quarter-size hail. The tornado threat is unlikely here, and notice why. Because we have a line of storms versus just those individual thunderstorm cells. And then we have more of those supercells developing out here in the high plains, including parts of South and North Dakota, but also the western side of Nebraska, including the Nebraska Panhandle by this evening, and those will take a run at the upper Midwest, but weaken as they do so. However, the one further north may survive into northern Minnesota for your early Sunday morning, posing a risk for wind and hail up there in northern Minnesota. Now, as we start the day on Sunday, besides that cluster up there in northern Minnesota, things are pretty quiet, but as we go into the afternoon, additional storms will fire from Lake Superior back there into northern Wisconsin, central southern Minnesota back toward Nebraska, and that's where we're going to see a line of storms start to develop. This would be more for damaging winds and large hail, but there could be some embedded tornadoes with this further to the north earlier on in the day, and then overnight that's going to shift southward and take a run toward the Chicagoland, and it will be weakening as it arrives early on Monday morning. We're talking 3 to 5 a.m. by the time it reaches Madison, Milwaukee, Rockford, or Chicago, but there could be some remnant gusty winds, some frequent lightning, even some smaller hail with this. Obviously, some locally heavy downpours, so be keeping an eye on that. Here's the rainfall totals across the upper Midwest, getting into portions of the lower Midwest. We're talking Illinois for that, and we could be seeing potentially upwards to 2 more inches of rain between now and Monday morning on July 28th there across portions there of the upper Midwest into the lower Midwest, western Ohio Valley. A little bit drier across the plains, though, but there could be sporadic thunderstorms from Nebraska on northward toward the U.S.-Canadian border. border, including the Dakotas, that could drop maybe a half inch or an inch of rain at times. In the eastern U.S. here at noon, we are seeing some quiet weather at the present, and then as we go into the afternoon, some widely scattered showers and storms will be possible from the Ohio Valley into the mid-Atlantic. A few of those could be strong, posing a risk for wind and hail. The tornado threat is unlikely. As we go into the overnight, we're going to see these clusters of showers and storms in episodes moving across the northeast and the mid-Atlantic, posing the risk again for wind and hail and some heavy rainfall. That will continue through the morning hours and afternoon on Sunday. We're just going to have a lot of wet time. You know, we're going to have an hour here or an hour there of rain, and then an hour here, hour there of some drier weather in between. And that's going to be the theme as we go into Sunday. It looks like the coverage of storms will pick up for the Tennessee and lower Ohio River Valley once we get into Sunday evening and into Sunday night. Rainfall totals, again, are a little sporadic. Looks like the wettest areas will be Pennsylvania, where we could be seeing upwards to 2.5 inches of rain between now and Monday morning on July 28th. Some heavier rain up there at times into upstate and eastern New York, Vermont, Massachusetts. The further south you go, we're going to see the coverage pick up later Sunday afternoon and evening, but even so, it's still kind of sporadic with rainfall down the road. 30 miles, you could get a half inch, and then 30 miles in the other direction, you may not get a drop of rain. That's just kind of the coverage of storms we're looking at in the east. Now, here in the west, we're looking at the potential for a few thunderstorms firing off across portions of the Pacific Northwest and then the eastern Rockies as we go into this late afternoon and evening today. A few of those could be strong up there toward Montana and Wyoming. We'll keep an eye on it, and then overnight those will push more into the upper Midwest and away from the western U.S. Starting off Sunday, very quiet outside of some drizzle or sprinkles across portions of Montana, and then as we go into the afternoon, more storm activity firing off from central Montana back into Idaho and southeastern Oregon. Further south from there could be some attempts at thunderstorms in New Mexico with the monsoonal flow, but it looks like more isolated activity with the monsoonal flow there in New Mexico and southern Colorado as we go into Sunday. So kind of hit or miss further to the south. A lot of us, 90% of us, will probably be dry across the west as we go through Monday morning on July 28th, but there will be some areas from northern California, southeast Oregon, central Idaho, up there into Montana that could see a quarter to a half an inch of rain. Not the biggest rains we've ever seen, but definitely some rain nonetheless. Let's look at our heat wave that continues to cause some troubles across the United States here this weekend. If you're not a fan of the heat and humidity, we'll continue to stay tuned to the forecast here because we got some big changes on the way. Before we get there, though, this ridge of high pressure is going to amplify and get stronger as we go into Sunday, July 27th. Notice our highs today into the 90s and triple digits all the way up there into South Dakota. We do have some 80s there with some rain cooled air from the Chicagoland eastward there into Michigan. So Lansing, Kalamazoo, and Grand Rapids, Traverse City. Cloud cover, precipitation, keeping your temperatures down, but still pretty humid. And then further south into the southeast, we got some record highs across the Carolinas and Florida. As we go into tomorrow, we got more triple digits widespread from South Dakota, Nebraska, down there into eastern Colorado and Kansas. 90s across portions of Texas. And then look at that widespread triple digits there across South Carolina, especially coastal Georgia down there into Florida on Sunday. And we look at next week's temperature anomalies between Monday, July 28th through Friday, August 1st. Warmest of the air will be across the southeast with more record highs promised, and that will be even further to the west as well across Oklahoma, Texas, and the Red River Valley, staying pretty warm. Look to the north. There's some hints here of some whites and blues. That means near normal and white. Blue is below normal temperature anomalies. And watch what happens. On Monday, stifling heat across the Midwest. We could be pressing up to 110, 115 degrees Fahrenheit with our heat indexes for areas near Des Moines, Madison, Milwaukee, Chicago, and St. Louis, even over into Indianapolis as we go into Monday. Here comes the powerful cold front, dropping our temperatures already into North Dakota and northern Minnesota on Tuesday, July 29th, into the upper 70s. Lower humidity is promised, and then Wednesday that drops even further south. Look at that, mid to upper 70s across much of the north central United States, and that will just continue to drop south to end the month and to start the new month of August. Look at that widespread relief across portions of the north central and northeastern U.S. The heat will be suppressed further south into Texas, along the Gulf Coast and down there into Florida. Now, we have to watch this transition because when you have the transition between hot and steamy weather and cool and dry weather, you're going to see some thunderstorms, and the intensity of the storms are still unknown as we go into next week, but we'll try and diagnose it the best we can here. Here's your storm energy. That charcoal color there is off the charts amounts of storm energy. So we're going to have a lot of storm energy at the disposal for sure on Monday, and then going into Tuesday, we're going to have quite a bit of it as well from the Midwest into the Ohio Valley. Wednesday pushing it further to the south, and Thursday, Friday continuing to push it further south towards the Gulf Coast and southeast. So what does this mean? Well, we're going to have some precipitation across the north and eventually the central plains, stretching over into the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and then the precipitation later on in the week will be picking up near the Gulf Coast and the southeast as that cold front continues to trudge its way further to the south. So let's track it here. On Monday morning, could be an ongoing line of thunderstorms across the Midwest, Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, really fading as it moves into northern Illinois with a wind and hail threat. As we go into Monday night, another complex will follow suit, developing in South Dakota, northern Nebraska, pushing east-southeastward into southern Minnesota, Iowa, and taking a run again at northern Illinois. And then Tuesday, we got another complex coming in from the Central Plains, dropping into the Missouri Valley there, so St. Louis could be included in that. And then Thursday, Friday, we're going to see more thunderstorm activity, although further to the south. Now we're talking more areas of Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, and then stretching through Tennessee and the southeast, getting some relief as well. What do we do in the long range with the forecast? Well, as we go from August 4th through August 11th, we're going to be seeing that ridge anchored across the desert southwest. So we're talking the Four Corners region, and that's where the heat really is going to be the most impressive, is across those areas. So West Texas especially, that has been a little bit cooler at times because of the monsoonal flow. Amarillo, Lubbock, Midland, El Paso, for example, are going to really start to be heating up as we go into that second week of August, where areas in the eastern flanks of the United States will be near normal to slightly below normal with temperatures, and the precipitation will stick around as well to near normal and then leaning above normal at times in the east. And we're going to be keeping an eye on some more thunderstorm threats there. Now let's look here at the tropics, okay? The National Hurricane Center in Miami, Florida is not forecasting any tropical cyclone activity over the next week. This is over the next 7 days across the Atlantic Basin, including the Caribbean and the Gulf. So that is some great news. The reason for that is the thing we've been, continuing to say over and over repeatedly on my videos. The Saharan dust coming off of Africa is suppressing activity. Dust is dry, right? And just like on land, when you have dry air, that does not help in a thunderstorm environment. And thunderstorms really shape a tropical system. So if you can't get thunderstorms to develop, how are you supposed to get a tropical cyclone to develop? That's just not possible. So while there could be some attempts at it in between some of these bigger plumes of dust, in the main development region and so forth, it's not looking to be impressive. So yes, there are attempts at a tropical depression through the long range as we go into the first week of August, but if they sustain themselves, then sure, we could see a tropical storm, but I don't really foresee us seeing a major system through the first week of August just because the Saharan dust is just so widespread across the main development region, for example, and really just into the Caribbean as well. So that is going to suppress activity. In contrast, the East Pacific is getting active once more, and there are 3 different systems that we may have to watch over the next 7 days, including the one closer to Hawaii, just to the southeast of it, 60% chance of development. So that is some pretty good odds that that system will develop, and it's a wave train, right? We have lots of tropical activity here in the East Pacific, so daily we're going to be keeping an eye on these systems, but more importantly, the Hawaiian Islands down here, especially the big island of Hawaii, we're going to be keeping an eye on the potential for some heavier rainfall. Now, the latest model guidance has that first system that has a 60% chance by the middle of next week, skirting by barely just to the south. We'll have to see what the second and then the third system does, how close it gets to Hawaii and so forth. We'll keep an eye on that. But right now, model guidance has a big H, a high pressure system right over the big island as we go into next weekend on this time, just 7 days from now on August 2nd. So we'll keep a very close eye on the tropics for you. But thank you all for watching. I definitely appreciate it. If you enjoy straightforward, accurate, reliable weather coverage daily here on the channel, yes, we do daily videos. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like like the video, give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it throughout. Share it with a friend, family member on social media. And if you have any comments, questions, and concerns, make sure to jot that down in the comment section down below this video. We are here all day, all night, 24/7 to answer any and all comments, questions, and concerns that you may have. Thank you all for watching. I hope everybody has a wonderful and safe rest of their weekend out there, and I'll see you all in the next video.